Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be going over some Regulation F content. Today we're going to be looking at the Victory Road December Challenge number 2, and it did see Jeremy Cote take first place with Raging Bolt Bounce. Are you surprised at this point in Regulation F? If you've been playing the format for a while now, you would know that Raging Bolt Bounce is one of the, if not the top archetype to beat in the current format. But along with that, there are some other notable builds and some other notable ideas and cores that are still strong even right now, besides the Raging Bolt balance, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the usage rates as always. So this way we can see some individual mons and see what kind of sets are going to be pretty good right now to run in the current format. And then, of course, as always, we're going to be looking at the top cut teams and also maybe make some predictions moving forward as we chug along with the format here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's go back into the Victory Road website here and let's take a look at the usage data. Okay, so here we are in the usage stats. So let's go ahead and break things down. By the way, 200 plus players participated in this tour. So again, great turnout for Victory Road. And again, if you're trying to get some Regulation F practice, it's a good idea to join these tours along with the other tournaments that you can find on Limitless, because again, we don't have online ladder for this format yet again. So the only real way to get good practice besides playing with your friends is to join these online tournaments. And again, Victory Road, they've done a great job for over the last few years or so. High number of turnout with their players and also the quality of competition that you're going to be facing, right? But anyway, number 1 here for Fluttermane here, Incin and Raging Bolt and Urshifu at 2, 3, and 4. That's probably going to stay the same, for the rest of the format. Maybe there'll be some flip-flop amongst those 4, but for the most part, these are your top 4 of the format here. Again, Fluttermane being a very strong and dominant fairy type that can, deal super effective damage to a lot of the fighting types and dark types that are running around. And of course, at the same time, can give you speed control with stuff like Icy Wind and the occasional Thunder Waves. Taunt is also very useful. Non-prankster fast taunt is quite useful. And then you can also run choice spec sets for a little bit more damage. Otherwise, booster energy is going to be a popular item, just to get the boost in speed and get the leg up against the mirror, especially if you're running Icy Wind. But then from there, Incineroar, of course, very essential for pretty much any kind of team, especially the balance and the Trick Room teams. Again, just the idea for fake out, for setup, especially if you're a Calm Mind Raging Bolt player. Otherwise, Parting Shot and Protect is usually the way you're going to be playing if you're going to be doing the balance stuff. Of course, just weakening the opponent, cycling in and out, making sure that they don't do damage. And then you're just going to slowly wither your opponent's health with the occasional chip damage that you're going to be getting. And you're going to be winning those games because, again, they're going to be doing less damage than you because you're just always cycling your Intimidates and your Parting Shots, right? So Incin, very useful. And then, of course, the occasional knockoffs where you can just remove key items like an Assault Vest, for example, and then just go from there, right? Raging Bolt, again, maybe the best mon that you could build around in the format, especially the Assault Vest variants. But, of course, the Calm Mind variants are still very strong right now. So those are the 2 dominant ways that you can play it. Yes, you'll see the occasional Life Orb and Booster Energy sets along the Raging Bolt sets, but ideally the balanced way with Assault Vest, whether it's Snarl or just other electric attacks, it's still pretty good. You get the occasional Electro Webs as well, super bulky, and then when you partner this with Intimidate, now all of a sudden the Assault Vest variant becomes relatively hard to break, right? And then, of course, Priority Thunderclap, where you can just invalidate an Urshifu, for example, or, deal enough chip damage where Thunderclap can pick up from a certain range. Urshifu Rapid Strike, again, at number 4 here. Again, Surging Strikes is busted. You can go through Sash because it's 3 hits. Ogerpon Wellspring is going to be high in usage because of that, because again, Water Absorb is going to be very useful against the Urshifu, and then you can deal super effective damage back with the Horn Leech. And then the Heart Flame here, so look at the conversion rate though, right? So like 27% all the way to 43% in phase 2 there. Heart Flame is still a very, very strong Ogerpon to use, and it really just depends on the tournament, I would say, because these are the 2 best Ogerpons without a doubt, right? And they'll be flip-flopping in terms of their usage, right? But for the most part, they're both excellent in what they do. And now what people are starting to do is, partner the Ogerpon Heart Flame with Rillaboom now. So now if you Terra this, now you just have like a +1 Grassy Glide, for really, really big damage, which is very useful, right? If you consider the attack stat of the Ogerpon Heart Flame, along with the fact that it can get a boosted Grassy Glide in terrain, which is very useful there. And then, of course, you have the occasional Follow Me's where you can act as a support mon. For example, maybe like Raging Bolt can capitalize off of that as well. It's a great partner for Fluttermane as well. Because again, with Fluttermane being weak to, you know, stuff like Steel and whatever, it's nice to have a fire type on your team, something like the Ogerpon Heartflame there. Landorus, again, another very, very useful Pokemon in this format, especially in a format where there's a ton of Instant and Raging Bolt there. Just having that super effective ground move to pressure both of those options is going to be useful there. The occasional substitute sets are also really nice. Rillaboom, Chenpao, and Amoonguss there. Again, you know, with Chenpao back, again, priority Sucker Punches, invalidating Fluttermanes if they don't have the right EV sets. And then, ice coverage into the Landorus, into the Raging Bolt, into the Rillabooms, for example, and even Amoonguss and other Roaring Moons. That's also very useful. And then other Ursalunas, again, don't want to be taking ice type attacks as well. So Chenpao, very useful. And then just the fact that you have Sword of Ruin makes it so that Dragonite is going to have high usage again. And then you see it over here in 13th place. The Ogerpons are going to have good usage next to it because their Ivy Cudgels and the other stab moves are going to be hitting harder. And then just with Urshifu, right? Just the fact that you can have Urshifu hit even harder, right? So Urshifu, Chenpao, good combo to use in Regulation F. And then, support options like Amoonguss, Tornadus, and Farigiraf, they're going to have good usage. Again, Farigiraf being able to deny priority, which is something that is very common in this format, right? Dragonite Extreme Speed, Raging Bolt, Thunderclaps, Aqua Jets from Urshifu, right? The Fake Outs. So Farigiraf being very useful here. And then at the same time, being able to set Trick Room for not only the regular Ursaluna, but more importantly, the Blood Moon Ursaluna is going to have something to do with that. And you can see both Ursalunas are high in usage, right? 17 and 25. So within the top 30 there are both of them. And then even though there's a ton of Dark types and Fluttermane in the format, and despite the Landoruses and the Fire type Ogerpons, Goldengo is still seeing good play in Regulation F. No longer the S-tier threat that it once was in the previous format, of course, but it's still hanging in there because it still has enough support where it can still do well, notably the Instant and the Amoonguss and the Tailwind setter, right? So you can play the balanced way, so you can set up the nasty plot, and then at the same time, you can go for that Tailwind and then position the Goldengo where it can outspeed everything and just hit hard with that Make It Rain. And then if you outspeed the Fluttermane, then you can pressure with your own Shadow Ball, for example, right? And at the same time here, Roaring Moon, like we said here, you'll probably see quite a bit of Roaring Moon and Goldengo together, just because, again, it can round out a Dragon Fairy Steel Core, and Roaring Moon, like you saw in the previous VR tournament, is also still very, very strong and still pretty good right now. Not the greatest of conversions, but again, still can get some pretty good usage. The Dragon Dance set is very popular right now. The occasional Tailwind sets are also okay, but they just get Intimidate spammed by Instant, and then, they don't do as much damage. But still, Roaring Moon with that Dragon typing is really good against the Ogerpons, and then having Acrobatics can just pressure the Ogerpons, Amoongusses, and the Rillabooms. So it's still a really, really, really useful mod. And the Dark typing, great into the Iron Crown Size Spam. Speaking of Iron Crown Size Spam, here it is, right, with the Indeedee here. So it's still a notable archetype that is still running around in Regulation F. And sometimes you'll see the occasional Regidragos, although there are other Regidrago teams running around, especially that Regidrago slow balance idea that we saw in the previous Victory Road Tour. We'll probably break that down a little bit later this week, but that is a team to watch if you are competing in Regulation F, because up until this point we've just seen like hyper offensive Regidrago, but now all of a sudden you have this new innovation of this slower, more balanced, controlled Regidrago idea. We'll cover that a little bit later if we think that it is actually something to pay attention to, right? Then other fire types include stuff like Entei, the Gouging Fire, and the Chiyu, and the Hisuian Arcanine. These are all Pokemon that we've done or covered before in the previous videos with our team building. Again, with Entei having access to Sacred Fire, you don't need a Ho on your team. Not that you could use Ho anyway, but at the same time, again, you also have Extreme Speed, which again combos very well with the Chenpao. You also have access to Snarl. You have access to ground moves. So Entei is also a very strong option. And at the same time, unlike the other fire types, you can't get intimidated and you can't get faked out. And that's a big selling point with Entei. And Hisuian Arcanine, again, this one can get faked out, but at the very least, you are a more aggressive Intimidate user, unlike the Instant, where your job is to deal damage, right? Along with mitigate damage, right? So rock coverage is still very useful in this format. And then at the same time, the hard-hitting Flare Blitz is also quite nice. And then the Gouging Fire enables a lot of physical partners with the Howl boost. And then you can mitigate physical damage with Breaking Swipe. And then from here, the occasional uses of Smeargle here on certain teams, Spore, Decorate combinations, very deadly, especially with Urshifu and Raging Bolt stuff. And then the Tinglu Dondozo teams, right? So like the Sand Tomb Yawn combination is very annoying, but otherwise you'll just see like standard Dondozo teams, especially the 2-2-2 combos, right? And then Porygon, again, can fit on quite a few teams. It really just depends on how you want to use the P2. It could just strictly be Porygon 2 balance with Instant Amoonguss and Ursaluna, and then, fill in the last two depending on what you want. Otherwise, the P2 can also be a Trick Room option to deny Trick Room even, or be useful against other Tailwind teams on your own type of aggressive balance team or Tailwind balance team, as I like to call it. So overall, not too much different than what we've seen already. It's just that these Pokemon are starting to get explored a little bit more in terms of different sets, which is good, right? Because again, the Mon is still good, but now people are starting to experiment a little bit more. For example, like Dragonite, back in the first go round of Regulation F, the Scale Shot, the Scale Shot, loaded dice set wasn't really used. But then, of course, obviously, you got to use it more and more in Regulation H. But now, all of a sudden, it's not just the Extreme Speed bot that we've come to know and love with the Chenpao. Now, all of a sudden, people are starting to explore Dragonite with the Chenpao, with the with the Scale Shot loaded dice set, because now people are figuring, look, if I've got Chenpao on my side, my Scale Shot is doing more damage. So even if I can't get that 5th tick, at the very least 4 hits is enough, because now the boost from damage from Chenpao is able to let me pick up KOs. And that's something that we did not see in the first go around in Regulation F. So a little bit more exploration there. And we'll just have to see what happens with the rest of the format here. But we're going to take a look at the Raging Bolt balance teams as well as some of the other archetypes as we scroll back up here to the main page. Okay, so here we are. We do have the top cut results here, 1 through 11 here. But before we even jump into this, just looking at this as a whole, I'm just going to give you a couple of ideas for some cores that you can use, right? I know we hinted at it before, but just staring at this, I already see like what's already going to be successful, or what has been successful, even the first go around for Reg F. Look at this combo here. We've spoken about this in our other Regulation F videos. Fluttermane and Landorus here, great special attacking duo here. The Icy Wind from the Fluttermane, especially after your own booster energy, makes it so that the slower Landorus can get the speed advantage and then just go for these hard-hitting Earth Powers and Sludge Bombs, right? Especially against like the other Ogre Pawns, for example. Then you want an Intimidate Pokemon on your team here, right? Because again, look at Fluttermane. The special defense is very, very nice, but the physical defense, not all that great. So you need to reduce physical attack damage. This is where something like Incineroar can come into play, or even something like the Hisuian Arcanine. Either way, you need something on your team to give you that Intimidate support, right? And then, of course, with Incin, again, just being able to jump around and just cycle, with these fake outs, the instant intimidates, and these parting shots is going to be useful. The Arcanine can't quite do that, but it can still give you, physical offense here, and you still have Intimidate on your side here, right? So then after this is where you can add the Ogre Pond Wellspring, where it can give you that Fire, Water, Grass core and give you something against Urshifu, because both of these mons, right, the Landorus and the Fire type, can be weak to the Ursh. This is where the Wellspring is going to be really useful. And then you just add Raging Bolt here, right? And then this can get the Assault Vest. This could be the Calm Mind user if you want. Either way, this 5 is going to be very good, just to start off a balanced team if you want to play that way in Regulation F, because you can see the synergy here, right? You've got the Intimidate, physical attack damage reduction. You have the special attack damage reduction too if you have a Snarl user on your team with something like Raging Bolt here, right? And if this is going for the Assault Vest, all the more merrier, right? All the more power to you. And now you just have a lot more, not really like immediate offense, but at the very least, you can weaken them enough where your damage will eventually start ramping up, and then you can start picking up KOs here, right? But the key is just to mitigate damage, put things in range, and then pick up the key KOs where you need to, right? Make trades, right? And then at the same time, make sure you can favor your board positioning against your opponent here, right? So If we just take a look at these teams, you can probably see a few examples of this. So for example, the winning team, Jeremy Cote, let's take a look at his squad. Yeah, exactly, right here. You've got the Fluttermane, you've got the Landers here, then you've got the Intimidate support here. Now, look at this. The Ogerpon Heartflame ends up being the win condition here because you have a Swords Dance set instead of a Follow Me set, right? So that means the double Fake Out boys are going to be very useful here because Fake Out and Swords Dance is going to be powerful. Then at the same time, you're adding grassy terrain with these hard-hitting grassy glides. So even though you don't have a whole lot of speed control, it's okay because you have all this priority moves on your side, right? So Trick Room, Tailwind, doesn't matter. At the very least, Rillaboom and Ogerpon, they're going to come in and start clicking these grassy glides and whatnot. You still have Fluttermane for the occasional Icy Winds, of course, but speed control is not really going to matter in this case because if you're just mitigating all their damage, doesn't matter if they go first because they're not doing damage to you. So yes, you can do your 20% to me, but I'm just going to KO you right back after I set up my Swords Dance, right? So that's one way to really think about it. Okay, then as you move down here, look at this. This one's a little bit more unique, right? The Moltres and the Sneasler are the ones that stand out here. You've got the options that we mentioned earlier, right? The Fluttermane with an Intimidate setter, right? Like the Arcanine. Raging Bolt with an Ogerpon. This is pretty cool. Then you have these two here for a little bit of a niche idea. And the Galarian Moltres can still work in this format, right? Because again, it is a dark type just like Roaring Moon and some of the others. But you got Snarl support and it's Stab Snarl with Choice Specs. That's going to put a ton of pressure on the opponent. And they kind of have to be careful with how they damage the Moltres because Berserk will activate and then the Moltres is just going to do more damage. Moltres is great with a ground type as well as Intimidate support because again, you're weak to electric, but if you've got a ground type on your team, then you're set. Otherwise, you can still manage with the Dragon Pivot where you can soak up those electric attacks. And then the Arcanine, again, giving you that physical attack damage reduction, which the Galarian Moltres very much enjoys. But look at the Sneasler here, right? Unburdened Wind-Up. You never really considered Sneasler to be super, super strong in this format, unlike Regulation H, where it just came from, right? But it's not even Dire Claw. It's Fake Out and Gunk Shot here with close combat. And again, the Gunk Shot is the move that stands out because it's not Dire Claw, but instead you're getting a lot more base damage here. And you know, if you hit, you're just going to start removing Ogerpons left and right, as well as like some other options like a Fluttermane, for example, right? So, you know, the fact that you can outspeed a lot of these fast threats like these Ogerpons and just invalidate them with something like Gunk Shot, and as well as even like close combat against Roaring Moon and their Intimidate setter, that makes the Sneasler very, very powerful here. So this is pretty good. Then you have this team here from Darrow. Kind of look at this. Is this Raging Bolt balance? Yes, it is. Look at this. This is Calm Mind Raging Bolt. So this ends up being the win condition as opposed to the Ogerpon like we saw in the first place team. You got the double Fake Outs, right? And then at the same time, you have another physical mode here with Chien-Pao and Ursh, right? So Sword of Ruin plus Surging Strikes is busted. Fake Out and Surging Strikes is busted because you can't protect against the Fake Out. Well, you can, but you can't protect against the Surging Strikes, right? So that's the board presence that these two have, right? Physical attack damage pressure. And then Fluttermane here, look at this. First of all, Taunt is pretty useful along with Thunder Wave, right? These are like a little bit more situational moves for Fluttermane. How about the Pain Split? You never really see this. This is something for like Dusclops. But yet here we are with Pain Split Fluttermane. That is very, very interesting here, right? And that can be useful because again, what you can do is just, you know, chip the opponent's health, right? Start putting things in range for Chien-Pao Ursh and then Calm Mind Raging Bolt and then just go ahead and win, right? But I can already see the playstyle here. Again, Fake Out Calm Mind, right? Protect and Parting Shot, right? Pivot back into Rillaboom, Fake Out again, Calm Mind again, right? And then just, you know, Protect again, Intimidate comes back in, or I should say Incineroar, Fake Out, Calm Mind again, right? And then you're just doing this every other turn or so. Just keep protecting and then just keep getting recovery from your leftovers and your grassy terrain recovery. And then before you know it, Raging Bolt is just one-shotting things with priority Thunderclap or, you know, +2, +3 Dragon Pulses, right? And then even once Raging Bolt is done, even if you lose it, you still have options like Chien-Pao Urshifus, you know, to clean up in the end game, or even like your Fluttermane if you do decide to bring it, right? So very traditional, very classic Raging Bolt balance here with the occasional adjustment to the Fluttermane set. This is what I was talking about earlier, where yes, the Mon will still be used, but now you're going to see an adjustment in some of the sets. And here is one example with the Pain Split Fluttermane. So if whoever used this, I would love to know how they came to the conclusion of actually using Pain Split as opposed to something like, Shadow Ball or Icy Wind. But I think what I said earlier is the reasoning why. But anyway, as we scroll down here, of course, you're still going to see the Articuno stuff here, along with the Alolan Ninetales. Heatran, again, is pretty useful with stuff like Magma Storm here, just trapping things and the occasional chip damage, right? Landorus is also very useful with U-turn pivoting and cycling the Intimidates, and it is a Scarf user, right? So now what you could even do is just partner Articuno with Landorus, and then just Earthquake next to it, and then spam Blizzard at the same time, right? So, if Earthquake can't hit another flying type on their side, the Blizzard will, right? So this is another useful idea that you can consider with the Articuno. Nice to see Wu Chen do a good job there. And look at Kandai's team over here, 10-0. Just unfortunately a little bit short there. Is this what I think it is? It does look like what I think it is, and it is Raging Bolt balanced, Calm Mind Raging Bolt here. However, you have the other win con here with the Swords Dance Ogerpon Heartflame, right? So now you can always choose whether you need the Calm Mind endgame or you want the Swords Dance endgame. And you have the perfect support here with the Fake Out Boys, right? And then at the same time, you have Taunt and Icy Wind Flutter Mane. This is a more traditional set here, right? You can give up your Shadow Ball move here and then just opt for Taunt here. And then Surging Strikes Urshifu with the Sash is always just going to be busted because you can, chip things down until the Grassy Glide, Swords Dance stuff can pick up, as well as the Calm Mind Thunderclaps can pick up, right? Then from here, from Koji, look at this one here. Again, familiar ideas that we mentioned earlier. Flutter Mane and Landorus partnered with an Intimidate user like Arcanine or Incin, and then you just add an Ogerpon Wellspring. Then you add Raging Bolt, Assault Vest, and there you go. You balance. You have a Raging Bolt balanced team. And in that 6th slot, it really just depends on how you want to play it. They ended up with Wiki Berry Goldengo. Very interesting choice, all right? And again, you have 2 ghost types on your team now, but Wiki Berry Goldengo was the choice here, okay? And then, you have a little bit more speed control here because you have Electroweb Raging Bolt to partner with the Icy Wind Flutter Mane, so that helps too. And then the Banned Arcanine is just going to give you a physical attack damage presence. No Chen-Pao makes things a little bit more interesting, right? But I do see the vision because I was just thinking Chen-Pao can just enable the Arcanine a little bit more along with the Ogerpon Wellspring here, but they wanted another special attacker here. So now we have 4 special attackers here with 2 physical attackers here. But again, I'm totally fine there. It was just would have been my preference there. How about this one? This one's another cool one, right? And we kind of saw this, from the previous one, previous VR here. Look at this, Galarian Zapdos here with coaching, and not only that, Sunny Day. Again, why Sunny Day? You got a Protosynthesis Mon here with Gouging Fire, and this ends up being very interesting, right? Because you've got Howl on the Gouging Fire, and you've got Coaching on the Galarian Zapdos there, right? So both moves that can enable partners, and that means you have some flexible leads here, because again, with Dragonite having multi-scale instead of inner focus, that makes it so that you can just intimidate this thing. So if you can partner Gouging Fire with Dragonite or Zapdos with the Dragonite, you can go for these Howls or go for these Coachings, right? And then all of a sudden the D-Knight can get its damage back and then start going for these hard-hitting scale shots, right? And then Chen-Pao here, again, just doing Chen-Pao things, enabling the physical attackers here. I will say Terra Steel Ironhead Dragonite is very useful this format just because it lets you hit the Flutter Mane, right? And that's going to be important moving forward. And then the Gouging Fire here, again, with Breaking Swipe for mitigation. Then look at the Tinglu here with the Clear Amulet. Earthquake, Terra Blast, Throat Chop. This might even just be an offensive Tinglu that can partner with the Zapdos, with the Gouging Fire here, right? And it just makes it a little bit more annoying to remove, because now what ends up happening is with Coaching, you're getting a physical defensive boost, right? So you're taking reduced physical damage, and then you add Vessel of Ruin, which means special attacks, right? They're not going to be doing as much. So now all of a sudden you're super bulky because you're reducing damage from both types of damage. So the Tinglu ends up being a winner in this case because you're dealing not as much damage to it, and then he gets to deal pretty decent damage back, especially after a couple of Howls and Coaching boosts here. So this is an interesting idea. And then all of a sudden you throw in the Sinistcha here, right? With Hospitality, Healing, right? And then Trick Room, of course, for your Trick Room matchup. And then Strength Sap for, again, the physical side, weakening the opponent, and then the redirection support here with Rage Powder. So the Sinisha ends up being what we call that Swiss Army knife, where you can fulfill multiple roles on the team. It's Redirector, you mitigate damage, you give yourself speed control with Trick Room, you have healing here, right? So Sinisha, Jack of all trades kind of on here. I like it a lot, and it just makes sense on a team like this. How about Nielsen? Of course, he's going to use his Blood Moon Ursaluna here. And then Farigiraf just makes it so that you have that Trick Room mode. You also have that Tailwind mode here with Tornadus. So you can just easily go Tailwind Hyper Voice, right? And then look, it's a Life Orb Ursaluna with Terra Normal there. So it's going to do a lot of damage. And then the Instant Amoonguss, very classic defensive VGC backbone here. Intimidate, Parting Shot, Redirection. And then look at this. It's also an Assault Vest instant. So you might even consider Adamant on this, right? Because again, U-Turn will deal decent chip damage, whereas Parting Shot does not deal damage. So you can even just Break Sash this way, pivot out into something else. But Farigiraf here with Armor Tail, again, with so much Fake Out and priority moves in the format, just having that Farigiraf on your team is going to help a lot. And look at this, it's Throat Spray, right? So I would imagine this is a modest set here that can really just take advantage after the +1, hard-hitting Hyper Voices. Boosted Psychic is going to be strong here, right? And then the Terra Fairies for the Dark Weakness. So all in all, really, really nice. I like this idea. This is what we call like Tailwind balance, right? Because you can just hit hard and hit fast, with Tornadus Blood Moon and Tornadus Ogerpon here, but you can still control the board with stuff like Instant and Amoonguss here, right? And look at this, Ivy Cudgel, Wood Hammer, Stomping Tantrum, 3 attacks. No follow me here. You've got it already with Amoonguss. So, might as well just opt for that ground move that you might appreciate here. So I like that from Frederick. Look at this. How about Zachary Weed here? And yep, this is pretty much Raging Bolt balance yet again, using the core that we mentioned earlier. Fluttermane, Landorus, with the Raging Bolt here and an Ogerpon here. Entei, not the Fire type Intimidator, but still the Fire type damage dealer, right? And then the Dark Urshifu here, is really strong against like Farigirafs here. We've built a team like this before in the first go around here. We have EVs for this kind of team. So if you want something like this, feel free to comment, then we can send you that. But again, Assault Vest Raging Bolt here, looking pretty good. Then we have the Regidrago balance idea here with the Tornadus. And then you have Farigiraf here, but no Blood Moon or Ursaluna. That's okay. You still have Choice Specs Goldengo, Heart Flame Ogerpon here with the redirection. Is going to be nice. Again, Farigiraf is much appreciated. If not Farigiraf, you need the Indeedee, because again, priority moves just make Regidrago a sad puppy, because now your Dragon Energy doesn't get to really deal the amount of damage that you want it to deal because it's getting hit by all these priority moves. So having Farigiraf on switch in ready from the back, it's going to help a lot, right? And then over here, look at this. Taunt and Icy Wind Tornadus with Covert Cloak here. That's going to be very useful. Again, just Taunt shutting down things like another setup, and then Icy Wind giving yourself speed in the Tailwind Mirror, and then Specs Goldengo. Listen, you can just easily just go Tailwind, make it rain, rip through Phrase. Even if Goldengo doesn't quite get the KO, as long as you deal all that big chip damage, stuff like Regidrago and Urshifu are just going to clean up in the end game, right? So you can just imagine it like that. And then Julio Tarlau here. This looks like Volcarona balance, right? And it looks like it is. It's Quiver Dance Volk. With Instant Amoonguss backbone here. Okay, follow me Ogerpon here. So you've got the support, right? You've got the double redirector. You've got the Fake Out Pressure. You've got the AV Raging Bolt with Snarl support. Okay, and then Urshifu Single Strike can come in and just deal Fake Out Wicked Blow damage, right? So this looks like a Volcarona team, meant to, like I said, protect the king idea, protect leftovers, Parting Shot protect. Okay, Quiver Dance up, and then just keep redirecting and keep mitigating damage until Volcarona is ready to sweep. The same way as Calm Mind Raging Bolt is ready to sweep. But again, the Bolt is going to help you mitigate the damage and the speed, with Electro Webs and Snarls, right? And then after that, you can start picking up, after things have taken a lot of damage, chip damage, as I should say. So teams like this, just like other Raging Bolt balance teams, they're not meant to beat you in 1 or 2 turns. They're meant to set up first by weakening you, right? And making sure they have the favorable board state where they can sweep you, right? Because again, even though they're not going for the immediate KOs like a hyper offensive team, they're trying to play the long flexible game, and that's kind of how they win. Okay, but anyway, so lots of balanced teams with the occasional niche ideas. So yeah, that's pretty much established. So Raging Bolt is busted. Like, look how many teams have Raging Bolt here in the top 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the 11 teams have a Raging Bolt. Mostly the Assault Vest sets, some Calm Mind stuff, but you know, this goes without saying. And then of course the Flutter Mane usage is also very high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Flutter Manes within the 11 there. So that's also a strong turnout there. And then honestly, the Urshifus here also are fairly high. I think that's like 4 or 5 over here. Yeah, that's 5 Urshifus there. And then, you know, Instant Amoonguss is still very much a good defensive backbone like we see here from 8th and 11th place here. And not too much hyper offense. So you got a couple of Tornadus teams here, but that's pretty much it. Just 1 and 2. Otherwise, you know, 9 of the 11 don't have quote unquote tailwind coming from a Tornadus there. Like this Moltres didn't have it. But, you know, you will see another Moltres team that did have it. So we'll take a look at that in a second. But yeah, all in all, it's the balanced teams, specifically Raging Bolt balance, that is reigning supreme. And don't sleep on the Swords Dance Ogerpon here. That's already the lesson that we learned within the top 11. So let's look at some other teams. Let's see what else did well here. Okay, now let's take a look at some other Phase 2 teams here. And one type of idea that I'm going to look at is the Sun plus the Protosynthesis stuff. Because you kind of see that, you know, a couple of times here. And you also saw it in the previous VR stuff. But Flutter Mane, okay, along with one other Protosynthesis with it, right? So either this is going to be Raging Bolt. And how about the Walking Wake here, finding some usage within this tournament here? I think there was a couple of Walking Wakes here. So the idea is this, either or, if you have 1 or 2 of these, okay, now you can enable it with either something like Tornadus with Sunny Day, right? Which is fine. Or we can go the manual route and just add Torkoal here for the Sun, right? So now we have Manual Sun on switching, where we can boost the Flutter Mane or boost the Raging Bolt / Walking Wake here. And now by adding the Torkoal, now all of a sudden you have a Trick Room Sweeper on your team, and now you can enable this with something like the Ferrograph here. Okay, and then you can also make this a more offensive set where you can go with the Throat Spray set along with something like Hyper Voice and Trick Room, and then so on and so forth, right? So this could be the core of another team here, right? Double Protosynthesis with the Sun user and a Trick Room setter. This is the core, right? And we can see a couple of these here. Where was it? I saw it earlier. Oh yeah, right here. So Shunsuke Minami, right? So you've got Flutter Mane, you've got Raging Bolt here with Torkoal and Ferrograph here, right? And then all of a sudden you have Walking Wake here with the Covert Cloak, which is also useful, an item on it, right? Because now you don't have to suffer from Snarl. But look at this Torkoal set. First of all, it's Heat Rock, so now you're going to have extended turns of the Sun. And then you have the Yawn Torkoal here. So now this could be a support idea with Flutter Mane and Raging Bolt, right? Because otherwise it's just going to get hit a lot of times. So this way you don't get to click Eruption. But now all of a sudden, maybe you can make this a little bit more of a bulkier support set where Eruption can be something that you can play in Trick Room, right? It may not sweep like a traditional Choice Specs Torkoal, but it can still deal enough damage in the Sun where now if you partner this next to a Throat Spray Ferrograph, now all of a sudden them two, they can handle it. But the idea is with Helping Hand and Yawn, you can put things to sleep, you know, force the opponent to make a decision, stay in or go to sleep or switch out and be out of position, right? And that's the idea here. And then you can just do Helping Hand, Flutter Mane with Moonblast, Helping Hand, Dazzling Gleam, Helping Hand, Shadow Ball, Helping Hand, Power Gem into other fire types is also strong. Same thing with Raging Bolt here. Helping Hand with any of these attacks is going to be strong. Helping Hand Ferrograph with, you know, with Hyper Voice, also going to be very, very strong. So Torkoal can be the sweeper and the helper at the same time, depending on how you want to play it. And then the Hisuian Lilligant here, immediately when you see it on paper, it's probably after your Eruption, but in this case, it's not. Look at this. It's Upper Hand here, and that's going to be very useful here in this type of format, right? And then you still have Sleep Powder stuff that you can always click and always give yourself an out because sometimes maybe you can't pick up the KO, but you're in an unfavorable spot. This is where Sleep Powder is going to be very, very useful, especially if you can get all 3 turns there. So I really like this team. I think it's smart building because again, you're just capitalizing off of, you know, team building fundamentals where you're just, you know, picking a couple of sweepers, supporting them very, very well, and then just adding a niche slot in the end here. All right, so I like this idea a lot. And then you can kind of see the same idea down towards where Marco Silva, aka Marco Fierro, he was trying to do the same idea here, right? Similar methodology, right? With Fluttermane, Walking Wake, 2 Protomons, add Torkoal, add Ferrograph here, so that much is still the same. Then you add the Ogerpon Heartflame, which again can do more damage in the sun, as well as can be partnered with Rillaboom, because now you have the Swords Dance Grassy Glide idea. So you can always just do something like this, right? Fake out Swords Dance, then just do priority Grassy Glide stuff if you want. Walking Wake with Life Orb instead of the Cobra Cloak. So, but again, still can do a lot of damage at the same time. And look at this, Eruption Heat Wave Helping Hand. So this is a more traditional Torkoal set where it's meant to do damage in Trick Room, but at the same time, you can still have the Helping Hand option where you can partner this next to pretty much anything here, right? So I do think the Torkoal idea where it is supportive yet also offensive is going to be useful, and it has been useful already. So if you want to build something like that, you can take a page out of that book. Still gotta respect Dondozo and Regulation F, and no surprise here, 7-3 from Adrian Hurley, aka Colding Light. 2-2-2 Dozo is a type of way to play it, and that's exactly what we're seeing here, right? Dondozo Tatsugiri, right? Choice Specs Giri, Rocky Helmet Dozo. A little bit more of an unusual item. Usually you'll see something like Clear Amulet, or maybe a Berry Recovery or Leftovers, right? But in this case, we've got Rocky Helmet for the chip, right? Then you have Cresselia, Ursaluna, right? So you can always just do the Trick Room stuff with Ursaluna. Great partner with it. One of the best, if not the best right now, in terms of a duo with Ursaluna, right? And then Safety Goggles just makes it so that you don't get to fall asleep to Amoonguss in Trick Room, right? And then Helping Hand Earthquake is very strong. Helping Hand Facade, obviously. And then at the same time, you still have Dragonite Chenpao here, where again, just a ton of physical damage here, right? Where you're just going for, priority E-speeds, just picking up KOs left and right, weakening things for Dondozo Tatsugiri to clean things up in the end game, right? So that's also a way to play it if you want to do it. Otherwise, if you look at some other stuff, how about some of these, the Iron Crown size spam stuff? But look at this one. This one isn't even Iron Crown size spam. Well, but first let's look at Jonathan Baradas' team here. This is a little bit more traditional, but there's one notable change here. First of all, Tornadus, Iron Crown, and Indeedee here. That's a key core, right, where you can go for Tailwind, Expanding Force, right? And then Indeedee can just come in on switch in, a little bit more stronger Expanding Force, obviously, because now you have Psychic Terrain advantage. Then you also have Urshifu here, like Tailwind Surging Strikes is strong, right? It's a banned Urshifu, first of all. Priority, again, denying priority with Psychic Terrain, very important. So this way, you don't die to Sucker Punch from a Chenpao, for example. Sneasler here, Psychic Seed Unburdened. So again, another Unburdened Sneasler coming out to play yet again. How about Acrobatic Swords Dance on this type of thing, right? So look at this. You could just do Indeedee Sneasler, follow me Swords Dance, right? And then just start sweeping, probably Papa Terra, go for these hard-hitting acrobatics, right? So this is something that's pretty interesting, right? So you could do Indeedee Iron Crown, Indeedee Sneasler, right? Indeedee Urshifu, the classic Sword and Shield idea, where you can just do, Helping Hand Wicked Blow. But how about the Smeargle as the additional slot here? Usually something like this, you might even just consider Regidrago, but instead we have the Sneasler, okay? Decorate, Spore, and Follow Me, okay? Very devastating trio of moves to have, right? Because again, Spore Pressure, along with Redirection support, again, another Redirector besides the Indeedee, and then just having Decorate with Urshifu, along with Sneasler and Iron Crown. These are prime Decorate targets. That's very, very annoying. And then you still can give yourself Weather Control with Sunny Day here, right? Where can be useful against the rain stuff. So, again, something like this, a little bit more innovation with the Iron Crown here, right? Especially with like booster energy stuff here. Tachyon Cutter, great at busting up Chenpao because you can bypass Sash. Terra Blast, Terra Water, great into Incin because otherwise you can't really hit Incineroar all that well because Incin is a Dark type and a Fire type. So Tachyon Cutter, Expanding Force, not really going to do a whole lot there. So that's very useful there. But other kinds of Smeargle ideas. I think there was another one here. I want to say, no, I think I missed it. Oh yeah, no, right here, Alberto Russo. Look at this. Again, same idea. Just decorating a Choice Specs Chiyu. That's annoying, right? The banned Urshifu, yet again. the Landorus here, right? You can just decorate this, like hard-hitting Earth powers. It's already Sheer Force Life Orb. Now you're telling me you can decorate that thing? Insane. Now you also have Raging Bolt here. Again, meant to be bulky and supporting, right? With Snarl and E-Webs. Now all of a sudden that could be a decorate target, and now you just have priority +2 Thunderclaps. Okay, that's a lot of damage. So again, Smeargle, very annoying. And then with the Sash and Moody, you just outspeed the entire format, or could outspeed the entire format, and then just spam Spore. And now all of a sudden you're just chipping things away after you just spam Spore. So these Smeargle teams are coming out a little bit more, right? Because again, it is very, very devastating. So you know, we'll see if there's a little bit more innovation with the Smeargle stuff. But again, if you need to fill in that 6th slot, the Smeargle seems like a prime candidate. I also want to take a look at the Roaring Moon teams here. So I like both variants over here. I think they're structured more or less the same way. And these are familiar Roaring Moon teams even from the previous Regulation F. So let's look at Liam Westland. Liam Westland. Okay, there we go. So Liam, he's got the P2, you know, supporting the Roaring Moon balance idea, right? So you got Roaring Moon, Instant Amoonguss, right? Then you partner the Goldengo here, which again very much enjoys the Instant Amoonguss idea, right? Because Fake Out Nasty Plot or Redirection Nasty Plot here. The P2 just offers you some balance against the Tailwind stuff, right? Because you have Trick Room to click. Ice Beam is strong into like another Landorus. Terra Blast, Terra Poison, also very useful against stuff like Ogre Pond. Poison, again, being able to resist fighting, you know, which is something that the P2 is weak to. And then you just have Landorus here, again, as like another special attacker that can partner well with the Insane, the Amoonguss idea as well, right? And then Substitute is also, you know, annoying in and itself. But again, very strong into Raging Bolt, very strong into Insane, right? And can be pretty good against like the Ogre Pond as well, right? But this is Dragon Dance Roaring Moon, which again, we did see a lot of, you know, the previous Reg F, and we also saw a little bit more of it in the previous Victory Road Tour. But double knockoff here from Instant and Roaring Moon. Again, just removing key items. And then from there, if you're able to set up this Dragon Dance, Roaring Moon is just going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to hit very hard. You already got the booster energy, right? And these are usually the adamant sets. So now the Dragon Dance will not only give you another attack boost, but it'll also give you a speed boost too. And now all of a sudden, Roaring Moon just becomes the win condition that can sweep you, right? And if not, then you can always just go with Goldengo here and play for that win con. Otherwise, you can also force 1v1s in the end with P2, where you can just alternate, you know, Trick Room and Recover and the occasional chip damage with Ice Beam and Terra Blast, Terra Poison. The P2 can 1v1 a lot of things not named Urshifu. So if that is an endgame you have to go for to win, then you definitely play for that. And then this one here, this other Roaring Moon team, also very similar idea, right? Because again, Instant Amoonguss, P2, Roaring Moon. But now we add the Ogre Pond Wellspring instead, and now we can get another Fire Water Grass Core here, something to help protect a little bit more while still being a little bit more aggressive, right? Because you got Follow Me, Ivy Cudgel, and then Specs Fluttermane with Perish Song. Again, Perish is very useful against stuff like Dondozo, because again, there's no Clear Smog here, so Perish Song is still strong. It can also force switches where maybe the opponent wants to set up with something like Calm Mind, Raging Bolt, right? You just click Perish, and now all of a sudden they have to switch out, right? So that's also pretty useful there. And then at the same time, you can also play for an idea that you can just pick up 2 KOs and then just click Perish and end the game there. Because now those 2 Pokemon, they can't switch anymore. And, you know, you just have to play correctly, pivot in and out, protect and whatnot. And then you'll just end up winning the game that way. So I like this idea too. So Roaring Moon balance teams are still okay. Rafael Bagara, right? Who we know as well, but this is like traditional Cresselia or Ursaluna. The Instant Ogre Pond Wellspring will give you that balance and that space that you need to set up the Trick Room. And from there, you just got Choice Specs Fluttermane and Raging Bolt, Life Orb Raging Bolt, that can just do a whole lot of damage in whatever scenario. And Raging Bolt is good on these Trick Room teams. We saw this a lot on Calyrex Ice Rider teams back in Reg G / Reg I. And again, just having that slow dragon is very useful because, again, consider what Ursaluna is weak to, you know, like the other Urshifu, right? This is where Raging Bolt is really good. And, you know, because you can, you know, click Priority Thunderclap and not have to worry about it. Rillaboom is also a problem, right? This is where Incin / Ogerpon Wellspring can help you there, right? Most are the Incin, right? Because you can intimidate, support it, and pressure with Flare Blitz. And then, Flutter Mane can just pressure everything else, right? Because you have this choice specs idea. And Cresselia here, Helping Hand can also partner with anything here, right? And then just Moonblast, Trick Room, Lunar Blessing, very standard set here. But nothing that we haven't seen already. So super cool there. Heatran here is also one of those niche picks that, again, can do well. So let me look at Kian's team here. Again, Heatran, great against Flutter Mane Chi-Yu teams because, again, Flash Fire with the Steel typing makes it so that both of those are going to be hard to hit the Heatran with, right? And you saw a lot of the Flutter Mane builds, they're giving up Shadow Ball. So if you don't have Shadow Ball, then what do you have to hit the Heatran with? Nothing, right? Because you're going to resist the Moonblast. And then the Chi-Yu, the fire type is not going to hit because you have Flash Fire. So the only thing the Chi-Yu can do is just click Snarl. And that's fine because you're still going to stay on the board and you're just going to pressure, both slots here, especially now that you have Earth Power, right? Which is, again, strong into the Chi-Yu in itself, right? So Heatran, very good against the Flutter Mane Chi-Yu idea. Now you add Chien-Pao, Dragonite, Urshifu here. Basically, Chien-Pao plus, the physical homies, right? D-Knight, Heart Flame, Urshifu, Rillaboom there. This is pretty much standard. And now we see the familiar idea of the Grassy Glide with the Rillaboom here, right? And then you add the fact that you can have Chien-Pao boost its damage even more because of Sword of Ruin. Now, all of a sudden, these Grassy Glides are going to be really, really, really ripping through, right? So pretty cool idea. Basically, it's the priority stuff. Okay, that's really what that team is looking like there with the Heatran for something specific. We see another Dondozo team here, and it's almost 2-2-2, right? Because you have Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Flutter Mane Chi-Yu here. Then you've got Glamora here, but no Tailwind here. Instead, we're just adding Iron Hands for a little bit more Trick Room stability, and another bulky Fake Out user. Iron Hands not quite Raging Bolt, but still good enough. Because, again, even though it can get Intimidate cycled, like, Iron Hands is still, like, a very, very strong physical mod in Trick Room, right? So, don't sleep on that. Is this just straight Raging Bolt balance here? Yeah, it is. It's Life Orb Raging Bolt, too. Don't forget, Life Orb Raging Bolt is still very useful. So, this way, if you pivot out, you don't have to, like, cry about losing your booster energy boost. And once again, Grassy Glide, Swords and stuff. So, again, just set up and just start clicking these Grassy Glides. So, yeah, that's a very familiar theme right now, and it makes sense, right? Here, let's take a look at these other Raging Bolt balance teams that just missed out. Icy Wind, Taunt, Protect, right? So again, we're just giving up Shadow Ball here. Calm Mind, Raging Bolt. This is Stomping Tantrum, Heart Flame. Okay, yeah, that's the occasional tech that you can have on it. And then this one right here from Wang Yuxiang. And yep, there it is again, right? So think about all the Grassy Glide, Swords Dance ideas that we've seen here, right? So it's Rillaboom, Ogerpon, Heart Flame, and then you can add even the Urshifu Rapid Strike just to give you that strong Fire Water Grass Core. Just build with that, right? So, again, I'm just showing you duos that you can just put into the team builder and just, either something to be aware of or just build around that. And that's exactly what a lot of these players were doing in this kind of tournament here. I want to see if there's at least one more team that we can really spotlight here. I don't think so. I think we've pretty much covered everything, or at least everything that hasn't already been done before. I know there is one more team here from Pearl with the Screamtail. Encore Disable Lock, again, very, very annoying. But otherwise, it's pretty much just Raging Bolt balance with a Screamtail here. And, Encore Disable is very punishing because, again, Raging Bolt has some weaknesses there. But if you can just, remove them with stuff like Encore and Disable, right, where they're just kind of locked in and stuck, then the Raging Bolt can just Calm Mind forever until it gets to +6, and then just start one-shotting things with Dragon Pulse and Thunderclap. So if you want to play that way, sure, why not? But overall, again, a lot of good information that we got from this, and the main takeaway is this: it's a lot of Raging Bolt balance, right? It's a lot of Swords Dance, Ogerpon stuff with Rillaboom. You're gonna see the occasional Roaring Moons, the occasional Dondozo teams, right? That's still going to be running around, but nice to see a little bit of innovation here with this Sneasler stuff, along with some Iron Crown, Side Spam shenanigans, of course. And then this idea with, again, the double Protosynthesis Mons with the Torkoal offensive support idea, adding the Furgraph there, that's also another core that you can also build towards. So hopefully this put things into perspective in terms of where we are in the meta right now. And yes, you'll still get the occasional Articuno team here, right? But again, don't sleep on Galarian Moltres, okay? I don't think you should definitely sleep on it. I think it's a good mon here, and I'll leave this with one more thing here. Joey Woodring, great Moltres team, by the way. And you know, we love Moltres. I think this is one of the better ways to build it, and I have this team in my builder. The only difference that I had the first time around was I had the Sinistcha here, right? Instead of the Ogerpon Wellspring. I don't know if Joey tested that. Maybe that's a little too passive, but I just liked having Trick'em on my side along with the healing support where I could, you know, try and go for the Berserk procs again with the Moltres, right? And that was also very useful against the Arcanine here. Just like with Wellspring here, you can soak up the Surging Strikes, whereas the Wellspring here can also just redirect that away. But again, Intimidate support, Ground type with Landorus here, very useful against Raging Bolt here. And then you have your own Raging Bolt, Fluttermane, Landorus idea, right? Where you have E-Webs and Icy Wind support along with Thunder Wave and Taunt, right? Very useful. And again, Landorus with the double ground move with Sludge Bomb here. So you could just usually go with like Sandsear Storm, Fiery Wrath here, right? And I like this a lot. So Joey, you got a great squad here. I don't know if they tested Sinistcha, but I liked Sinistcha in that slot too. But Wellspring has its own benefits, of course, right? But anyway, that's it for now, folks. Let me know what you thought of this VR tour. Let me know what you're trying to use right now in Regulation F. And if you're still stuck, make sure you sign up for coaching on the channel. Tier 3 sub gets you a one-on-one team building session with me where we get to build the team from scratch. We showcase the EVs and we show you why we EV mons the way we do. And then from there, you can always consider the Tier 4 sub where not only will we do the team building session, but you get to also send me showdown replays where now we can give you feedback on your battling with the team and then just advise you on how to play certain matchups as well. All right, so if that's something that's interesting you, make sure you can sign up with Tier 4. And again, whether you do Tier 1, 2, 3, or 4, the link to join the channel will be in the video description below, as well as in the pinned comment section where you can click the same link and join the channel that way. So that's another way to sign up, as well as looking in the video description like we said earlier. All right, but that's it for now, folks. Happy holidays. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out and have a good one.